Going today, one angry pagan here, Shadowito. This isn't an angry video. I just wanted to clear things up a bit because I've had a couple of people challenge me that I'm not actually pagan. Now, I've got to say that for many pagans, they were originally Christians. Now, I never grew up Christian. I never grew up believing Yeshua was my Lord and Saviour. I never grew up believing in Yahweh, the Christian God, and it wasn't Jewish either. For me, from childhood, to now technically, but until I really started to actually think about gods when I was about 10 or 11, it was all about life, dinosaurs, prehistoric animals, and the evolution of that to get to where we are now with us. What science lacked, I could call myself a pagan scientist. What science lacks is a narrative. There is a theology that science doesn't need narrative. Why does I'm pretty sure that's an argument from atheists. This is why does science need a narrative? I suppose it doesn't if you're using science as a tool. But one of the arguments against biological evolution is against paleontology is that it is the sparseness of the fossil record, but science explains that. There is a story there. But when I was about 15, 16, I started thinking about something about why do things do what they do? Why does gravity act the way that it does? Why did it start doing that in the first place? Why did the Big Bang happen? Because I don't dispute that the Big Bang happened. As a theist, as a polytheist, I don't actually not accept the Big Bang. I do accept that. I accept but the difference between me and a hardcore atheist scientist would probably be that I have an explanation as to why the Big Bang happened from a narrative sense. But again, an argument can be posited of why does the science need a narrative? Because as far as I'm concerned, science is just the tool to find out our reality, to figure out the reality around us. But I cannot accept any arguments on the basis of, a lack of fossils, because more and more are being found year on year, and the disparity can be explained by behavioural sciences, assumed, but when we look at life today, and there's much that can be inferred, and a lot of this inference is just that, inference. We take the facts and then infer. Now, why can't we do that from a polytheistic perspective? Now, I have said before, I think on one of my earlier videos, that I don't have anthropomorphized gods. I'm not sure I still hold with that, necessarily. And let me explain. In the beginning, with the Big Bang, in whatever way you describe it, through whichever polytheistic mythology, theology, I reckon the Big Bang happened, Now, what I class as gods, there are 7. So we start with fire. Well, technically we don't. We start with light and dark. Then we have fire, water, air, earth. But what I mean by earth is rock and metal, because as we know now, earth in the sense of soil isn't earth. It's biological matter. It's more or less biological matter. So earth is rock and metal. So light, dark, fire, water, air, fire, water, air, earth. Oh, and electricity. Now, electricity is a sticky one for a bunch of reasons. However, the way I understand the world around me says to me that who we are the electrical impulses running through our brains. What happens to that? Because according to the laws of physics, energy, matter, energy, information is neither created nor destroyed, it's only ever transformed. So, to me, that's a form of evolution. So, we take this, and the electricity that makes us, that makes our spirit, or soul, if you want to put it that way. What happens to that when our physical form dies? Well, that goes back to the web of static electricity that Tesla proved is there. So extrapolating that, we can say that I can say that it is a fundamental element. Now, as I have to, this is going to be a bit messy, but it kind of came to me in this form. It then occurred to me that there must be this sort of like, the cow and Ganungagap. For me, you have this will energy. Now, it's hard to describe, but it's the reason why we have, for magic goes through our brains, out through our hands, whatever. That gets converted into a different form of energy. Will can, but it can do it by itself because it is that's its scientific property. Will energy, and will energy split into these separate forms. The ones I just listed, the forms of the elemental energies. Now, as time went on, these energies being born from will evolved a consciousness in of themselves. Not necessarily a human one, but something we'd understand as consciousness. When it came to creating life, more life, sorry, we'll go back to what we'll cut that there. When it came to the Big Bang, I should say, so you had this will energy that split into many, it split into 7, and these over some period of time, these beings grew consciousnesses, and in the process of making reality, they created a big bang. This would tie in with physics. This isn't exactly against the laws of physics. Again, time moves on, and as time moves on, these elements evolve even further. The way that they show themselves to the different peoples means it kind of shows us why so many cultures have had different names for these elements. They have a god of fire, a god of water. Water can mean oceans, rivers, but it's still a god of water. I mean, I always go back to Tolkien's Owle. You know, I like that description. You know, there's nearly always a sky god or an air god, an earth god, a god of light, a god of dark. Now, the electricity one, you know, lightning, don't know at all. It's technically a sky god, but again, to me, it's not the same. When we get to, you know, the beginning of life, these beings are trying to make other things other than themselves. But it's not by the decree of some greater power before them. This will energy isn't some, like it's not like Iluvatar and then the Valar. Not that sort of Catholicized way that Tolkien did it. But this background energy formed these seven, who then go on to create reality. As time goes on, they evolve themselves. So theistic evolution. When we get to the, you know, life on this planet, you know, there were experiments at how to make life, and they failed over and over again. Until one of the seven decided that a fresh start was needed, so froze the planet around 2 billion years ago, whatever it was, or billion years ago, whatever it was, when we had Snowball Earth. And the earth and fire gods waited and waited and waited until enough was enough, and the volcanoes smashed out through the kilometers of ice. They then go on to, as the waters melt, they've got something to use to try, like a mass. They've got if you can visualize the planet like a cauldron, in a metaphorical sense, yeah. So their planet is now their cauldron to brew up life. We get, you know, we start getting into multicellular life, and we start getting into life in the seas and moving on to the land, and we get life moving into the air. So again, it's not like this polytheistic view of the creation of the universe, the evolution of animals, theistic, the evolution of the gods in of themselves, isn't unscientific, and it's not like I can't have a religious belief in this, a polytheistic belief in this. Now, being that I am of the culture that's Anglo-Saxon, English, and partly Brittonic, and given that we had the Norse here as well, I am willing to give names to these gods once they got to the point of making humans and the peoples of that make up who we are now. So I do not now invalidate anthropomorphized deities, because I believe that my elemental deities had become anthropomorphized by their own will. I hope it's a bit confusing. I get that, but I'm not a creationist in the sense that God created everything in His own image. That doesn't work for me, in the sense that most people know it as. In any case, it's Terry Pratchett's idea was kind of, in a way, similar to mine, where it's experiment, where they're playing games with the life forms on the planet. It's not exactly the same. I can't use it as I'm not saying that I use that as a template, but there are some analogies there. I don't believe that the world was created in 7 days, for example. That's like, again, for me, my beliefs were born from science, from the way I understand science. So I got to science through pagan. I got to paganism through science. It was introduced to me by someone who was also pagan, someone else who was pagan, but my pagan beliefs evolved because of science. So I cannot agree with creationists, but I cannot also agree with atheists denying that, with the atheist argument of denying that there has to be a narrative. I believe that a narrative and the way that science sees things can be married together. I mean, the dinosaurs are still around. We have evidence of them being around hundreds of millions of years ago. Not dinosaurs themselves, but their ancestors, because of the bones, the shape of the bones, shape of the feet. You know, when we look at ancient footprints. Not only that, but given that there is much that we still don't know, as a scientist, there's just much we still don't know, I cannot disprove the idea of alpha. I can't deny the existence of spirits and demons and the piskies. So, and I know the absence of proof isn't proof in of itself, but there are cases where that is actually true, and I think this is one of those cases, personally. I hope that clears up some of these things. I'm going to do another video soon about exactly what I would call my gods. So I'm still going on this journey myself. And as I said, I no longer believe what I originally said in one of my earlier videos, in that I don't believe in an anthropomorphized deity. Because I believe that they originally weren't and became such. As one of the English, who, you know, isn't a lot of our mythology left, we've got to make new stuff as well. And find new ideas that correspond to those old ways. But it's not like the elements, elemental gods are a thing. And it's not like they're not a thing in Germanic and Celtic gods. So, yeah, let me know what you think. I'm on this journey myself. But this is why I call myself Shadow Eater. I look for knowledge that others don't look for. Or I look for knowledge in the dark, so to speak, in the shadows. There's hidden knowledge in the shadows. Because as an Anglo-Saxon descendant, there isn't much of what we have left. So I have to go looking into the shadows, because anything else that's in the light that can be clearly seen isn't clear enough. Let me know what you guys think. This has been Shadow Eater, one angry pagan. Again, this wasn't an angry video, but I wanted to clear that up a bit. Again, there will be there will be more videos on this subject, but I wanted to clear that up. I am pagan, but the way I see things has evolved, just like everyone else's. There are many on YouTube. Like Ocean Keltoy himself, I was watching a video earlier. He was saying that he was originally Christian. So, yeah. I mean, for me, I've come from a sort of atheistic background to, or a mix of theistic and atheistic, because my mum's a spiritualist, so she doesn't necessarily believe in God, but my dad does, and my nan and granddad do. So, you know, I have a foundation that's both atheistic and theistic, and I wonder if that has helped me get to the point where I am now. Like I said, I'm actually willing to go along with to identify with the Anglo-Saxon deities and the Celtic deities, and possibly some of the Viking the Scandinavian ones, if they correspond, which, from what I can gather, they do, to the what I know is the deities, the elements. So if I can say that the elements evolved into these human beings, these anthropomorphized like god beings, I haven't got a problem with that. Let me know what you think. And it's not impossible to say that these elements in of themselves split off, they split off bits of themselves to create lesser gods, demigods. I'm not sure there's a mismatch here with polytheism. And I'm finding matches to the way I originally thought to traditional polytheism. And I think that finding a new way forward is important. Let me know what you guys think. Bit of a mess in the way that I've done this, but again, this is how things arrived at me. So I'd like that understanding, that understood in context. Bless the Thursday, everyone. God weird, say y'all, and stay safe.